All right, here we are in the fifth video of the series of making an animated character here, a walking man. And what we're going to do is we're going to control which animation plays via script. So I've selected my manual one, and in the inspector, I'm going to add a script, and I'll just call it man. And here it is. Now I'm going to open up the script in Visual Studio, double clicking on it, and I'm going to start adding some code over here once it comes up. All right, I like lining up my little arrows. I'll just erase this and type everything over from scratch. All right, so first thing, I want to have some public variables. I got an extra bracket there. I want to have some public variables to um, control like the speed of motion. So I'm going to have public void move speed, and I'll set that to like 1.5 by default. And that's not a void, sorry, that'll be a float. We'll have a move speed variable, and we'll have a turn speed variable. Public float turn speed equals, like 100 degrees at a time. And then we're going to have a pointer to the animation controller so we could control which animation plays. So right there, let me make this font bigger so you guys can see it. Private animator, blah, blah. Animation anim equals null. Okay. Now let's see, we're going to have the start function get the pointer anim equal to something. So private void start, that's an event of model behavior. We're just going to set anim equal to this dot get component animator. Okay, bam. All right, and that's one thing. Next thing is we're going to have private void update. What happens every frame of the thing? Well, we're going to have to read input from the user. So let's say the user has a joystick or are using WASD on the keyboard. We're going to have a float for the vertical, like up and down. Input dot get axis vertical. And that will be a value from -1 to 1. Then we'll have another float for the horizontal dot get axis horizontal. Same thing, that's -1 to 1. And now we'll see what we're going to do. We'll say if the person is saying to walk, if the vertical input is not 0, if vert not equal to 0, then I'll say to play the walking animation. So to set which animation's playing, if you remember over here, we were controlling it with the is walking being true or false. So here we'll just say anim dot is walking. Is that coming up as a parameter? No, I have to say it's one of the parameters. It's a bool parameter. So set bool and then give it the name of the parameter is walking. Spell it the same way as you did. And the second thing is true. Set it to true. Okay. Anim set bool is walking true. So is walking is going to match the same way you spelled it over here when you added the parameter to the animation controller. So for the animation control, I'm setting is walking true. That'll make me walk. But if you're not pressing forward or backward, then just go ahead and set the anim dot set bool of the is walking parameter to false. Okay, so with this first thing, not even worrying about movement and turn speed, with this first part over here, if you're pressing input on the vertical axis, if you're pressing W or S or the up or the down arrow, then you should set the animation controller to is walking true. And if you're not, then the value should be 0 and the animation controller should be false. Let's see how that works. Let's save the script and then go back to Unity over here and let's press play. Okay, so automatically by default, the idle animation is playing. Now I'm pressing the W key and he starts walking. I let go. I press the S key, he starts walking, and I let go. So no matter what I press, he's walking forward, W or S. Fine, so that part's working as expected. Now for the part where he's actually going to move across the floor, I think we're going to have to put a floor here so we could actually see him moving on a floor. So let me do to the sample scene, I'm going to add a game object. I'm just going to add a cube. And then I'm just going to expand that cube out a little bit, like 20 by 20. And I'll just move it down beneath his feet right there. And it is kind of hard to see him moving if the floor is all white. So I will grab a image from the internet for the floor. So let me just see floor, texture, and something from the internet like this one over here. I'll just download it, save image as. So I'll save the image to my desktop and then I'll drag and drop it into Unity. So I say save image as, and I'll pick the desktop, and I'm just going to call it floor. Okay, so now that's saved to my desktop. I can close that, and it's right there. Here it is, the floor. I'll just drag and drop floor into my project in the assets folder, and bam, there it is. Now it's kind of easy to assign the texture. I just drag and drop the image and let it go on the object I want it to be a texture of right there. So there it is. The floor, the scale of the drawing of the floor, let me just name this thing floor. Floor. Okay, it's a little bit big compared to my character. So I'll just pick the floor and the material here, and there's something called tiling. And let me go 10 by 10. That looks a little bit more to scale of my character. Okay, so now we got a floor, so if I'm walking, I could see if I'm moving. So right now, all I have is the animation changing, but there's no motion. So now we're going to add the motion, okay? So let's go to the script again. And here in the update, we're just going to add something for moving forward and backward, all right? So the first thing for moving is we're going to use this transform. This is always the object that the script's attached to. So this transform.translate, and we're going to move along the z-axis, okay? Why am I picking the z-axis? Because you see here's the blue. The blue is the z-axis, and that is the man's forward and backward. So when I do a translation to move, I'm not going to move on the x or the y. He's not going to move up and down when he walks. He's going to move on the z-axis. So what I'll do is I'll take the value of whatever vert is, vert, then I'll multiply that by the move speed to control how fast he moves, and then I always do time.delta time, okay, to keep things smooth. So that should do the movement back and forth. So let's put that there. Well, we're talking it through. That should do move back and forth. All right, so let's save that, and then we're going to press play over here and take a look at him where he is in that spot. Now I press W, and he should move back and forth. So if he's moving too fast for the animation, I can either speed up the animation or slow down his movement. So I'm going to pick the easy one first and just slow down his movement. So that's with move speed over here. So since that's in this window right here, I could just do it over here and maybe say 0.8 instead of 1.5, and let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks a little better. Now the other thing we want him to do is be able to turn around. We don't have an animation for turning around, but we do want him to turn around. So when he's walking forward, he can walk in different directions. So we're going to use this.transform rotate instead of translate. And we're going to turn on which axis? Not the X, so 0 there. We're going to turn on the Y axis, and we're going to turn by the horizontal input value, so that's HORZ. And how fast do we turn? That's going to be our turn speed variable from the inspector window that the user could put in right here, turn speed. And same thing, we're just going to smooth it out with time.delta time. And then on the z-axis, we're not going to rotate. Bam. Okay. So let's see what happens now. Press save. Go back to my script. My Unity view of Unity. And I press play. So I walk forward or backward. He just plays the same walk animation. He doesn't have a backward walk animation. And if I press A or D or the left and the right arrow to turn, he just turns. Okay, so I could turn and walk at the same time. But now we basically got a guy who's walking around. So what's the next thing you guys think we should do? Like, do you think when he walks backwards, we should play the animation backwards? I think so. I think so. That's what we're going to figure out in the next video, how to play an animation in a direction that we want to. See you in the next video, video number 6.